What is going on, guys? It's David from AquaOtter, and welcome back to another My Hero Academia chapter review. This week we are talking about chapter 308, Full Power. So there was actually a little break. I know in my last My Hero review I said that we would be back the next week, but there was actually a little break because unfortunately Horikoshi ended up getting sick, which is totally fine. I'm alright with that, but I do just want to say right at the top of this chapter, they came back with a vengeance. Like, this chapter, I don't want to say this chapter was extremely hype. It was pretty hype. We got to see a couple of really cool things, but specifically, like, the art, like, they really popped off with, like, these panelings and, like, all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, with that being said, let's just get right into it, starting with what I think is probably one of the best pieces of art in the entire chapter, which is the very first panel, which we get to see this awesome little, it's Deku holding Yo from the last chapter, and he's facing down Muscular. And the way that this, like the paneling and just the layout, like where the fictional camera, I guess, would be, it just looks like super nice. There's this smoke billowing off of Deku. And then right underneath it, we get to see him, like a little close-up of his face with, like, the mask on, and he's got, like, his eyes are all dark, very reminiscent, actually, of non-muscular mode All Might, and just the tattered, like, ears of his costume and everything. And Muscular is looking up at him and saying, like, "I'd never forget you, it's really you, right?" And he's, like, screaming out, like, "Ah, Midoriya, I've missed you, little boy. All these pathetic whims just don't measure up. It's just not enough." And, you know, Izuku just doesn't even, like, respond to this at all. And Muscular's just kind of like, not so fast, like, don't run away now. He's like, "It's not like that, you've got me all wrong." He's like, "I'm not out for revenge or anything so dramatic." Like, he's like, "The way that I see it, going all out and just going wild with my quirk is just, that's just all that I could ever ask for." And he's like, "But, you know, I'm only human." And he picks up a rock off the ground. And we get to see a flashback in this next panel from all the way back during the training camp arc, where Deku is hitting Muscular with the 1-for-all 1,000,000% smash. And he says, "You taught me a new meaning of fun back then." And then he puts the rock that he picked up in his eye. Remember, he's got he's missing an eye. And, you know, before he had all those contacts that he put in, but he picks up that rock, puts it in his eye, and he's like, "And that was the point of no return." And he jumps forward, trying to go after Izuku. And Izuku actually notices, he thinks to himself, he says, "Oh, he didn't jump high enough." And Muscular just kind of grabs on to the side of the building, digs his hands in, and just basically, like, suplexes the entire building. And this is another, like, really, really great piece of artwork where the building is just being tossed. It's being literally, like, ripped in half, and there's all this rubble and smoke and everything. And Muscular's just screaming, "Let's go at it at full power, Midoriya." And so you get to see the rubble of the building is falling, and we are actually right outside of the Taguchi building, which is where all those citizens were kind of holed up from the last chapter. And they're, like, yelling, like, "Oh, what's going on? Like, I can't see with all this smoke. Like, what is that? How's that boy doing?" And Tatami, who is Yo's classmate that was with him in the last chapter, she goes running out, and you get to see, I mean, we know that it's Izuku, but at this point, he is absolutely completely shrouded in smoke. And we'll get to this. It is actually explained what the smoke is, but it's kind of now clear at this point that this is just another one of the powers of one of the predecessors. So, Izuku, like, lands in front of Tatami, like I said, completely covered in smoke. He's still holding on to Yo, and he's like, "Oh, I'm glad you're here. Here, take care of him." And he hands Yo to Tatami, and she's, like, yelling at him, like, "How could you be so dumb? Like, you're so injured," and all this stuff. And Izuku's like, "I'm sorry I didn't get here fast enough. He needs first aid." And he's, like, lamenting, like, "Dang, like, look at all these buildings that he destroyed. Like, there's already so much damage." And here we get another awesome, I'm gonna, like, put it up here probably, because I actually want to throw this one up on the screen. We get to see, like, this awesome, like, Izuku just completely shrouded in the smoke. You can see, like, the silhouette of him, and you can see a little bit of his mask. His arm is out of the smoke, and he's got the black whip coming out from his glove, and he's like, "No more damage from now on." And so yeah, really, really great piece of art. This honestly is one of my favorite pieces of art from the entire chapter. Like, just one of my favorite panels. It's so aesthetically pleasing to me. And yeah, so then Tatami is like, yeah, right. And then she's thinking in her head, like, it's hard to see through the smoke, but I swear that I know that voice from somewhere. And she's like thinking to herself, like, who is this? And then she doesn't really get time to like think much about it, because we actually cut away from her as Deku rushes back into the fray. And he's thinking to himself, he's like, is that too much? And I really like these next few pages. This is what I meant when I said at the beginning that we get like kind of a hype thing here, where he's actually saying, when he's thinking, was that too much? He's actually talking to the predecessor, to one of the predecessors, and the predecessor actually like appears beside him in almost like a ghostly form. Like, he's got like his arm around Izuku's neck, or like shoulder or whatever, and he's like, yeah, you spread your control too thin. So this is pretty hype, because like I said, I really thought that Horikoshi was going to use this fight with Muscular to kind of just visually depict to the readers that like how far Deku has come in like training One for All and training with all of the predecessor's quirks. Like, moving kind of just as like a benchmark of like, here's how strong he is now. Like, we had that little bit of a time skip, like, here's how strong Deku is now. And this is like one of those moments, like, he doesn't have to go into that like sleep state in order to have these conversations with the predecessors. And so, yeah, in the next panel, after the predecessor says, like, yeah, you've spread your control too thin, we actually get the explanation of what the smoke is. He says, you're using too much of my smoke screen, which is his quirk. And this is, I believe, this one is the 6th quirk. It's not the guy, the Black Whip is the 5th quirk. So this is the guy who inherited One for All from the Black Whip guy. And he's also the person who Nana Shimura inherited the quirk off of. So Deku is like, yeah, got it. And the 6th predecessor is saying, didn't I mention how it could backfire if the opponent gets the drop on you? And Izuku's like, yeah. And he says, One for All's influence has really opened the floodgates. Keep in mind that the greater power has been built up across all these generations of users. And he's like, it's a massively unwieldy power that you're using. And as the 9th user, like, of course you're feeling like more of a brunt of the effects of it than any of the rest of us. And he's like, so just try and like relax a little bit. And he says, like, he tries to tell Izuku, he's like, our quirks are mostly like standalone abilities. He's like, none of our abilities will ever really rise to the level of being considered like an ultimate move. But he's like, you have way too much like respect for our individual quirks, and you're trying to like hone all of them and use all of them as like your whole big thing. And he's basically just trying to tell Izuku at this point that like One for All is the main quirk, and like all of these things, like Nana's float and my smoke screen and Black Whip, like none of those are really great quirks all on their own, but in combination with One for All, like they end up being great utility quirks. And he says this in the next panel. He's like, instead of thinking of how to use them like as just the quirk, think of how to utilize them as tools in your arsenal. And he's like, approach the problem that you're facing strategically, and then use those tools that you have to put together a plan to deal with it. And so that's where he kind of goes away, the 6th, and he's like thinking to himself, and he's like, Muscular, like, this is the guy who is able to withstand like 100% smashes, no problem. And he's like, of course I'd never forget him. And then you see him, he starts using the 7th quirk, Float, and he's like getting himself back up to the top of the buildings. And then he says, I can limit his visibility using the 6th smoke screen and like guide him towards me, like lure him towards me. And then he starts thinking, he's like, I gotta dig up the memories of that night and like remember what happened in that battle. And then here's another great panel. We get this nice, like, pretty much like double page art spread. And we get a nice panel of like Muscular jumping in and trying to like fight Izuku. And he's just very easily like dodging out of the way. We get like these after images drawn in this panel of like him just kind of like dodging out of the way. And he's talking about how like he can use the 4th danger sense quirk to like help him read Muscular's moves and better like evade them. And Muscular just screams out for Midoriya at this point. And he like Midoriya like jumps past a building and then uses the 5th Black Whip to grab on and then like whip himself around. And then you see down on a street there's like this explosion of water. And now I've really tried checking on this panel to see if like maybe a fire hydrant had popped or something. I don't think that that's what this is. Like, I don't think it's like a fire hydrant popping or anything. I think that this has something to do with either the second user or the third user's quirk, this like whole water thing. Because Izuku ends up landing, and you see he's got Black Whip kind of like wrapped around Muscular, and there's all this water going around. And this is another, I'm not going to like throw it up or anything, but this is another like really great, we get this close up of Izuku. His like face just looks like really serious. I love the like dark eyes that he has now when the mask is down, like kind of like an homage, like I said earlier, to like non-muscular form All Might. But so Muscular is just kind of like yelling, like, what is all these cheap party tricks? Like, what's the deal with this? And Deku, instead of like responding and answering to him, he's just like, I know that Shigaraki and All For One released you from the prisons. Like, where are they now? And Muscular is just kind of like, who knows? You know, they just told me to like go wild and left me all on my own. Like, why would I know where they are? He's like, and why are you even asking about them? Like, I'm right in front of you. You should deal with me, not them. And he's like, these little gimmicks, like, man, they're so boring. Like, come on, let's have a proper rematch, mano a mano, like, no holds barred. We're just gonna, like, come on, like, let's just fight. And Izuku is just like, why do you rage like this? And Muscular is like, I just want to live without regrets. And Izuku, like, prods a bit more. He's like, regrets, like, such as... And Muscular responds by saying, like, such as not indulging and having fun every single chance that I get. And Deku is like, was there really no other path for you, Goto Imasuji? And he's like calling Muscular by his real name, and Muscular just kind of like yells like, nope, like this is my path. And he just like starts bulking up like muscle fiber on muscle fiber, and he's like trying to sympathize with me or something. Peddle that crap somewhere else, because all you'll find in my soul is blood and violence. And you see like a little flash of Kota, the kid that was actually Izuku saved from Muscular all the way back during the training camp arc. And in Izuku's head, he's like, if I'd known, maybe things would have worked out differently. And you see this panel, you see Shigaraki, and it says, this is also still Deku thinking in his mind. He says, this is someone who has hurt many people, who has killed others. And as Izuku, like, he like kind of hunches down, and he's like, seems like this fight is inevitable. And then still in his head, he's like, but at least I want to learn what makes him tick deep down. And now I want to like take a second, because we're right kind of in the end of the chapter here. But I want to take a second and talk about this, like this like train of thought, like at least I want to learn what makes him tick, like this is someone who's hurt people and all this kind of stuff. And specifically this flash of Shigaraki, because this just goes to show like where Deku's mindset is. Like, he's fighting right now because he knows that he has to fight Shigaraki, but he wants to understand these people that he's fighting along the way, like Muscular here. He wants to understand like what makes them tick, because he wants to know. Remember, Deku doesn't want to have to kill Shigaraki. He wants to save him. And that's, I think, the most important thing for his character. And certainly moving forward, this is going to be a very important thing for his character. I think we're going to see a lot more situations like this, because as we will see moving on into like the final like 2 pages of the chapter, this is just a joke to Deku. Like, Muscular is just not, like, he doesn't really even have to try anymore. He can easily take him down. But he wants to, like, while he can, he wants to try and pry and like get inside their minds to like figure out like what is going on. Why do they behave like this? Why do they act like this? Because he wants to see if like maybe that will lead him to some kind of understanding of why Shigaraki turned out the way that he did, and like if he can maybe bring Shigaraki back from the brink. But yeah, so Muscular just kind of like ends up yelling at him, and it's like, you turned out to be a real bore, kid. And then right as he says this, basically all of his muscle fibers start snapping, and he looks like a little bit surprised. And Deku is like, in the gaps between those muscles you coat yourself with, the strands of depleted energy tend to rip and tear away. And we see like these flashbacks of like these observations that Deku has made. And he's like, a guy who shies away from tactics and strategy wouldn't purposely jump to a lower floor like you did earlier. He's like, and I noticed how your muscle armor has actually been uneven in certain spots. And he's like, I guess that someone's been honing those vibrations in the meantime, talking about Yo and his vibration quirk. So we actually do get to see that Yo actually did do some damage to Muscular with that last ditch effort. It just like wasn't enough to take him down, but it was enough to injure him. And so Muscular is like, oh, you sneaky little, but he doesn't even get to finish his sentence because you actually get to see this flash of white light hit his stomach, and then we get to see the final panel. I really like this final panel because it's Deku just absolutely rushes past, smashes out Muscular. Muscular falls to his knees, and Deku's just like, this is also my full power. And I just really like the way that this is laid out with like the framing, like Deku in the foreground on the left, Muscular like on his knees and kind of like in the background on the right, and then the mask has come up a little bit, so you actually get to see Deku's face, and like he's like coated in One for All. He's got the full cowling going. It just looks really, really cool. And so yeah, that's pretty much it for the chapter. The next chapter does come out on the 18th, so next Sunday it will be coming out. This is a pretty decent chapter. Like I said, it wasn't like specifically like really, really good or anything, like nothing to really write home about. But there was a lot of like pretty cool things to happen. Like we did get to see like Deku's mindset now with like Shigaraki, and like how he's trying to learn like what makes a villain tick so that he can try and like understand Shigaraki a little bit better. We got to see like how far he's advanced with One for All, like the fact that he can just like willingly call upon the predecessors at this point, the fact that he pretty much has a decent understanding of the 4th through the 7th quirk. Like he can use Danger Sense pretty well, he can use Black Whip pretty well now at this point, Float and Smoke Screen, and like his overall understanding of using One for All is much better. And I do believe that he has access with like that water that is either, I believe that's going to be revealed to be either the 2nd or the 3rd's quirk, because I think that those quirks, the 2nd and the 3rd's quirks, are going to be more offensively based quirks than the 4th through the 7th's quirks, which are all like, you know, like the 6th predecessor was saying, or the 6th user of One for All was saying to him, like they're all like very much utility quirks, like they're just stuff to supplement, whereas I think the other 2 quirks are going to be a bit more like usable as like other methods of fighting. But yeah, so overall pretty decent chapter. I was pretty happy with it. It was, like I said, the art, like, man, they really popped off. Like, Horikoshi and his assistants, they were like, yo, we missed a week. Like, Horikoshi was sick. We're just gonna spend, like, we already know what's gonna happen. We have, like, the storyboard and everything for this week, like, laid out. So, like, let's just pop off and, like really, really polish the art in this chapter. I thought it was really, really good. But, yeah, so, moving forward, I don't really know where we're gonna go from here. I don't think that the fight with Muscular is gonna continue. And, like I said, I don't want to spend all this time with Deku, but I think we need a little bit more of an explanation of what's going to happen or what he's been up to over these past couple of months. So I think maybe that'll happen in the next chapter, but I am not sure. Like at this point with My Hero, I'm very like everything's up in the air and I don't really know what's going on because it is very much like right at the beginning of a new arc, and also with this whole time skip, like everything is in different like positioning. Like it's almost like we're right at the beginning of a new series here, and I'm just kind of like putting the feelers out and like finding, you know, trying to figure out what's going on. But yeah, so I'm just along with the ride. I'm really excited for it. And that is it for my chapter review. But before I go, I just want to thank everybody who is new to the channel, who found me through the My Hero videos. My first two, I should say, My Hero Academia videos have actually been doing very, very well, and I wasn't expecting them to do very well. And to me, it didn't really matter if they did well. I just wanted to put them out because I wanted to talk about the series. But I just want to say to anyone who might be watching this and did get to this point, thank you guys so much. If you found me from YouTube, if you're not like one of the people who I know in real life that is just watching to support me, or even if you are one of the people who knows me in real life that's watching to support me, thank you for your support. But specifically directing you new people to the channel, thank you guys so much for watching the videos. Thank you guys for interacting with the videos. It has honestly meant a lot to me to see like the views on those videos going up and the kind of interactions. Like I've been getting some comments and stuff on the last videos, and that like is awesome to me. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Like I said, it really means the world to me, and it would also mean the world to me if you guys stuck around. So you know, I also review One Piece on this channel. I don't know if you guys who are watching my Hero videos like One Piece at all, but it's not the only series that I'm planning on covering. Right now I'm just covering One Piece and My Hero. But I would love for you guys to stick around. I would love to hear from you guys more. So let me know in the comments what you guys thought about this chapter, what you guys think about the series at all. Put any of your questions that you have for me, because I started doing this YouTube stuff and these chapter reviews because I love reading manga and I love watching anime, even though right now I'm more on the manga side of things with my content on the channel. And I really don't have anyone in my personal life that I can like talk about it and go off, because I'm very passionate about it and I like to talk about it. But so I started doing this so that I could talk passionately about something, and maybe I would find other people who are also passionate about it that want to talk to me. So yeah, comment down below and just let me know, even if you just want to say hi, what's up? I really appreciate you guys. Also, if you like this video, please like and subscribe to stick around, because I don't plan on stopping this anytime soon. But with that being said, once again, thank you guys so much, and I will see you all in chapter 309 plus ultra.